Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back to the Summit 5 Southeast Asian Qualifiers. Phoenix facing off against TNC. Game number 1 already went to MVP.Phoenix, but we're moving into game number 2 now. I'm Lyrical Dota, joined today by Scantzor. How you doing? We got the picks going back the other way. This time taken by MVP.Phoenix into the Faceless Void, Slaughter, and the Tusk.
Yep, it's just, I guess this is the ancient apparition sub-meta between these two teams, and interesting also seeing MVP.Phoenix first phase ban a Lich. And I do recall recently when these teams met a week or two ago, TNC did take a game of MVP.Phoenix with an early Lich pick, which really caused trouble. I think their approach in that game, if I remember correctly, was actually to use the Lich to protect an Alchemist, but either way, MVP are like, that's not something we want to be against. And TNC, I don't know if you saw their first two picks were almost instant, the Void and the Slaughter immediately after the AA, so I guess they have a thing for bashing. They like heroes that bash people, and who can blame them? That's in these kind of action-packed fighting scenarios, why not be able to bash?
Yeah, it's the Bash Brothers from the Mighty Ducks 2, where they face off against the Icelandic team. You know what I'm talking about? Maybe? No?
I did watch that film, but I don't remember it that well.
Yeah, I watched it last week. That's what you meant, a long time ago, right? That's... No? Okay, just...
No.
All right, anyways, I'm gonna move on.
It is...
I'm not good at...
Don't worry, me neither. That's fine. It's gonna be the Clinks this time for TNC. So this is... what's fascinating about this? They picked all their cores as their first 3 picks. This is not a thing that you see very often. Slaughter can be run as a support. It has been sometimes in the past, but it's not what you expect when you see a Slaughter. The Clinks, almost always for TNC, by the way, is a Teehee hero in the mid lane. They could give it to Raven for the safe lane, and I've seen Teehee played once in the safe lane, but I'd say 99% of the time when they run Clinks, it's mid for Teehee, which is unusual for most teams. Most teams don't play it in the mid lane, but Teehee really likes it there. And it's going to be a Venge pickup now for them, which is going to boost the damage of everyone. So looking pretty good on TNC side in terms of the damage output of the amp damage and the Venge.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting draft already, and we've got the amp damage from them, the Slardar, Clinks naturally with those searing arrows. You get caught in any of these combos, either Chronosphere or even just a simple stun coming out from Vengeful Spirit, and it can be a lot of trouble. The Invoker is going to get taken for the moment, so also a bit of an interesting one. I remember seeing QO play a Quas Wex, if I'm not mistaken, a couple of times. I'm not sure if he always ends up playing it, but it feels like that could be a nice setup here, considering that all the other... you could also just end up going straight into, a snowball into Walrus Punch with a Sunstrike. Either way feels pretty good to me.
Yeah, there's a very memorable game, which Q had playing Invoker against TNC, in fact, where at one stage in the game, he was the only hero alive on his team, and TNC were trying to rush, and he managed to stall them on his own, just 1v5. So that's the thing he's done, although MVP's also juggled the Invoker players. There was a stage where Kyo wasn't playing it, so it was only MP playing it. And I believe people say that Kyo hadn't mastered the hero yet, but then he was practicing it, and then he played it as their main Invoker player. So as with most of their cores, Kyo and MP quite interchangeable, can be either of them playing the hero. It's going to be the Juggernaut ban for TNC, which doesn't really give us any insight either, because that's also a hero that both Q and MP can play, so it's not like we get to see what they think, who the Invoker is going to be this game.
I feel like it could really go away there, and I do like also the...
5 seconds
as far as the way that I see these games already going, TNC look to want to try and take towers themselves. A problem with it last fight or last game was that they weren't able to run down any of the towers. We commented on it several times, and so this minus armor strategy to me reminiscent of just trying to run in there, maybe even sneak a Roshan of their own. I'm not sure if that's what they're going to go for, but it's certainly a possibility.
Yeah, it's true. It was a huge problem last game. There were 2 or 3 team fights that they'd won very convincingly, and despite that, they didn't kill a single tower. It's just it's a rarity for a team to win a big team fight and not get an objective, never mind several big team fights. So they'll cover that base this time. They've got the Clinks, they've got the Venge, it's more than enough. And MVP who go back for the Spectre, so now that suggests very strongly to me that it's going to be MP playing Invoker and Cure playing Spectre. Again, they do play both, but I think that the Cure Spectre is almost like a signature pick. In my opinion, it's one of his better heroes. I always point out that he's Cure, I think, is makes better use out of the multiple horde ability than most other players. Like he'll jump to one illusion, then jump to another, then jump to another,
Right.
which hardly any specters actually make use of at all.
I remember seeing something like that where it was a specter caught between a lion and a Rubik, I want to say, and they were trying to lock down one of those two illusions, and then they were just able to juke them out and head off the other direction. It was a really skill. I was playing it necessarily that game, but certainly it's a possibility. And now you have like these massive, and this leads me to believe that it's going to be the Invoker going for a Quas Exort build here because you've got massive amounts of global presence. So if Batrider catches anybody, just explode them wherever they are all over the map. And this was, feel like, one of the stronger points of MVP Phoenix's draft last game was that they could just set up on somebody with the Clinks, roll in with an Earth Spirit, and usually find a kill. Just a very fast tempo style of game for MVP Phoenix. They're constantly going to be moving through these. What do you think about the Teehee Puck, though?
Uh, it's certainly surprising to me, considering the fact that I was just, he's by far their main Kings player. But I guess they decided in terms of, yeah, I don't know. I guess they decided in just something to do with the draft in terms of what they want to do this game, that it's going to be a game for Evan to be on the Klinks. It obviously means it's going to be a safe lane Klinks because they sometimes switch Teehee to, very rarely switch Teehee to the safe lane when it's one of his heroes, but you won't, I don't think you'll see them running unusual lanes unless it's for that purpose. And Teehee, I have seen him play Puck before, but it's, predominantly he plays the agility carry heroes from the mid lane, and sometimes he plays Jakiro in their push strategies, and sometimes, like once or twice, I've seen him play Puck. He might have been playing it a bit more recently. I mean, I've been watching a lot and casting a lot more Chinese Dota recently, so I haven't caught all of their very recent games. And it's not like he's not capable of playing a great Puck. It's a similar story to, like, if you look at Team Secret now, people said when Arteezy joined the team, he plays the same heroes as Eternal Envy. What are they going to do? And they were like, well, he can go back to playing Puck, Invoker, etc., etc. And there was a stage a few years ago where Arteezy used to play those heroes. It's, Teehee as well. He's an incredibly gifted mid player. He's a very skilled player. He can play those heroes. They just decide usually that their preferred approach to the draft is for him to be on those scaling carries. And here, because they've got the Void, the Slaughter, and the Clinks, I guess they felt they didn't need it. And we didn't mention in the draft, but I'm just going to come back to now. It is a support Slaughter. So it's like, They've crept in a lot of damage output into their draft with their supports being Slaughter and Vengeful Spirit, such that they don't need Teehee to be like a carry hero from the mid lane.
A very interesting look at it, and this was something that I feel like about a patch or two ago we saw a lot of when the changes to sprint came in. Obviously, you have the phase movement now as one of the things that you're going to be able to have, as well as just the increased bonus movement speed off of the back of it. And starting with the boots first, you can certainly wrap around and make kills happen in this lane if the Batrider isn't careful. As far as other things, though, just a very high damage output. Man, they are having trouble right now. I'm not sure what's going on with all of their computers, but hopefully they're all able to join the game rather shortly.
Yeah, it's sometimes the Korean players have trouble in the Southeast Asian servers. I mean, I assume these games are all being played on the regular Southeast Asian servers, and they're not actually. It's not actually the best ping for the Koreans. I mean, we typically consider them to be a SEA region team, but South Korea is not actually technically South Korea, right? There's a big story about how going into the Shanghai major, the MVP were playing much more on Chinese servers against Chinese teams, waking up at certain times so they could do that. And that's where they got. I mean, a bunch of their players got to 8K MMR in the Chinese region.
Jeez.
Not in the Southeast Asia one.
That's pretty impressive stuff. I was hearing a lot of people talk about, when I was actually doing some research about the Summit 5 NA games that were going to end up coming up for Phase 1, and I was talking to a lot of the players there, what they felt like the big differences were between NA and other regions, and one of the things that they talked about was that they felt like SEA mimicked NA in terms of the way that players approach the game, where it's very much about just build a lead yourself. You play very much for yourself, and then you go to try and snowball from winning off the laning stage, and then just dominate from there. Whereas in China,
everybody uses a mic and communicates over, open a microphone, and it's much more built around team fights as opposed to dominating a lane. And it's kind of interesting that MVP have been able to excel on both sides of the coin, being able to play really well in Southeast Asia, and then also having the communication background where they just team fight really effectively. It's you can sort of see it in the way that they play the game.
Yeah, although to be fair, if anything, it's pretty valid to say that MVP do even better when they're playing outside of Southeast Asia. It's
Right.
they've quite consistently shown that their LAN performances are better than their online qualifier performances. And what's happened with MVP several times now is but if we talk between the Shanghai Major and Dota Pit and WePlay, they will have these slumps online where they're losing against teams you don't expect them to lose to in the Southeast Asia qualifiers. Then they go to the next LAN and just win it, make
Yeah.
it look easy. So there's something to be said for the fact that they're not they're a team that's orientated around beating the top international teams more than beating the top local teams. And personally, I think TNC are situated in a similar position, and it's just like to their own detriment that they keep failing to get to lands, because I truly believe that TNC is a team that once they get to those lands, they will put up results. They'll surprise people. People will be like, "Who's this team I've never heard of?" Suddenly beating big teams, but unfortunately, that's the way it works. You have to qualify for land before you go to it, and right now TNC one game down, and this is a elimination series. So if MVP were to take the game, that would be TNC's hopes at the summit's completely gone.
And that would be pretty unfortunate. I mean, again, for any of these teams, you'd love to be able to make them happen. I mean, we continue to show that intro video that, it has all the happy little music. There's burgers roasting on the fire. It's a very communal feel there. You want to be able to, show up and flaunt your stuff and create your personality a little bit more and accentuate. Like, that's one of the reasons we were talking about the other day with China, the region there. The Wings Gaming Group are going to be going to the summit, and I'm super excited to sort of see them there, and I really hope that they're going to take part in a couple of those sort of extracurricular activities of hanging out and maybe even trying to do some casting or whatever. You said that there was a couple of them that speak English very well. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, one of the players from Wings, I think it's Faith Bian, actually was studying in America for a year and he was playing in like American team. He was playing in Void Boys and what was the other one? Tong Fu NA. So presumably in the lobbies also, he's the one that usually comments when like the admins say, "Are you ready?" or "Do we need to wait?" So I think that at least one of them speaks decent English, and I did speak to their manager, but it's at the Shanghai Major, and he speaks pretty good English. So I imagine that it wouldn't be that difficult. Also, the summit tends to hire a translator. Usually, I think Josh is there, so shouldn't be too much of an issue. Of course, the trouble, if we're talking about qualifying for the summit, is that whoever wins this match still has to beat Fnatic.
Yeah.
And Fnatic right now seem pretty clearly the team that's on top of the region. They're like big favorites to beat either of these teams in the finals, I would say.
That's tough. I haven't seen a ton of Fnatic games, but they always feel like they put up a really good effort, and it's certainly going to be a tough one. Again, a little bit of a sellout. Tune in tomorrow at whatever time it is for the best of 5 finals. Man, that was the worst sellout ever. I gotta get better at this stuff. I'm not necessarily the best.
Just keep checking, and eventually you'll see the match on. It's like, it's the same time as today started, right? So it's.
Yeah.
I mean, for Europeans watching, it'll be noon that the match starts, I think.
Let me try one more time. Here we go. Tune in tomorrow at 12 p.m. PDT. Oh, wait, no, it's not PM.
No,
God, I'm really
CST.
terrible. Oh, jeez. All right, well, we're going to have a little bit of a battle here as the Chilling Touch has already been thrown out. Dubu is going to be able to catch Cuckoo there in the splash. Give him a little bit of a hug, a couple right clicks, and he should be going down here, I believe. Well, Dubu also taking some damage in his own right, and it looks like they're going to be able to get first blood. Febby again on his Ancient Apparition is going to be able to get first blood. It's worth noting, this guy ended up going like 11-1 in the game that they played earlier today and had like a beyond godlike streak and was the second highest net worth as a support Ancient Apparition. It was absurd.
Yeah, well, interestingly, it looks like AU sitting at the mid lane at the start. He did help out and denied a creep, took a little bit of XP, but he's going to be moving across now. He was just blocking the wave as well. And part of why TNC couldn't win that first rune fight, Slaughter was blocking the mid wave, wasn't there. It is AU the drafter for this TNC team. he and Tihi have kind of been the backbone of the team for the longest time, and perhaps Sam H, you could say, on the offlane. QQ and Raven are the newer players to the team, and AU's kind of always drafting himself or Tihi into these strange roles. It's not that uncommon at all, and support Slaughter, I'm interested to see what he does with it. If he go, like, a lot of the time when he has these kinds of heroes, he does go for a greedy Midas. I don't think Slaughter's the one where you'd expect to see it. You know, if he gets into a lot of gold, it'll probably be a Blink Dagger this game. But also you're talking about the potential to kill the bat in the lane, and that's something that they could certainly try and do with both the Venge and the Slaughter and the damage output from the Clinks.
Yeah, that's something that you really need to be careful about. And the Crush, it's a pretty underrated ability. He's also using it to farm right now. So 75 damage, the 2-second slow, as well as a stun of 1.6 seconds. That's a light strike array right there if you manage to hit it. So respecting the danger there, we are going to see the Bat Rider head back over into the jungle. Gets a little bit of a pull off on these creeps and should be able to finish them off, which is going to allow him to get into towards his next level. But MP, meanwhile, has actually ended up going for the Quas Wex, so he is going to be playing that Quas Wex style. I do like this in conjunction with the Spectre, being able to get more procs of the Desolate damage. Kind of a nifty little package.
Yeah, and it's also, I think probably if you have a Spectre, it's a little bit greedier to run the Quas Exort Invoker, because you want the Invoker to help to make space for Spectre to really get into the game and hit its sweet spots. Similar even for the Bat Rider, it might need some time farming the jungle. The Quas Exort Invoker often spends time farming the jungle as well. So just like to fit into the draft that they have, I think it makes good sense to be Quas Wex this game. Also very useful against the initiation power of the Pack and the Slaughter on the Faceless Void. Be able to throw those tornadoes and counter initiate.
Well, and that's always the thing right there, is being able to just slow down the push and the combos that are going to come out. If you can, catch the Faceless Void as he's throwing out his Chronosphere and lift him up in the air before he manages to get that out, it can definitely be a pretty big boon to your team in the midst of a team fight, and just pretty much everything on their lineup. They aren't going to be able to get this pull off as Forever. Well, maybe he does actually. No, going to end up going back. Wildling Ripper didn't want to decide to attack him today, so not going to be able to get the pull. The creep wave's still in a good equilibrium for TNC, and this should allow them to get into a decent spot, shutting him out of the lane for the moment.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, we don't see him. I was talking about how T usually is mid lanes. There's early kill attempts one way or the other, but hasn't happened yet. Although we do see a rotation in from the Tusk Dubu, and might be MP. Yeah, they're going to start with the Cold Snap, and nope, not going to be anything there for them.
Yeah, a little bit too much. Again, Dubu with the level 2, he's a dangerous hero to be roaming around right here, so Teehee does have to pay him respect, but it's not really going to be enough to force a kill. It's mainly just to ensure that Invoker ends up having a little bit of an easier time with it. Sam H, meanwhile, forced away. The Cold Feet are going to keep him back from Febby, and with that, it should end up being another creep wave coming in, so a little bit more damage going their way. As Sam H is going to continue to get a couple of levels here. Level 3 now, and you compare that over to the Bat Rider, still having a decent time with it.
Yep, they're both doing okay, neither of them being totally dominant. By the way, something else about Ancient Apparition, which MVP, when they had the Ancient Apparition early on against Execration, we noticed as well the offlane Darkseer struggled with. Back when this hero was popular as a support, one of the main things it was popular for is that it is actually very, very good at zoning out offlaners. It's very well suited. You get extra value with that chilling touch. It's not just for those early fights they're in, it's also just for the crazy harass power.
Yeah, it is very strong if you just level out a couple of those hits. MP in the mid lane, they thought about going on him as the Illusory Orb had already been used. Meanwhile, bottom, the Forev Bat Rider is going to end up having to head on back, but still he's getting a nice chunk of experience here. He's really having a decent time in this off lane. Hasn't ended up dying, was able to be a part of an assist earlier. All in all, I think he's pretty happy with himself. And Void also is going to end up taking a little bit of damage. They threw out the dagger, throwing him back, but again, not a ton of action early. It's more just about trying to build up a little bit of an advantage. And as I say that, MP is actually going to get ran on a little bit there. Drops out the Dream Coil just to allow himself to escape for the moment. And trading right clicks, the EMP, they are going to be able to find the kill. Puck kills him off.
Yeah, would not be a match between these two teams without early 1v1 fighting going on in that mid lane, and this is actually T who gets the better of MP, and I mean, I don't know. I was about to make a comment about if it would be different as a Q, but I don't think that's appropriate to say because it's really not. It's T is a great player and plays around the EMP very well there, especially at the end to run forward. It's really interesting, the low kills of the early game in both this game and the previous game, and it's something that people have talked about. Or let's just first see, there might be some action at the bot lane, but it doesn't look like it. There was a stage where people used to say Chinese Dota is very passive, and then there was a stage where you'd have a lot of matches between teams like Secret and EG, where the games are very passive early on. And really what it is, the common factor in all these things is teams that play each other a lot and know each other very well. You often have a situation where there's no kills early on, and it's not because there aren't kill attempts, it's just because they read each other's movements very well. So we've seen in this game and the last game a lot of early posturing, but it's kind of like they're doing this kind of choreographed dance where everyone knows that, you know, when you make that move, we make this move. And it's going to be TNC now going for a kill attempt on the Taskia at the bot lane, and if Raven can get a little bit of damage off, he only gets the one hit across the river, so probably not quite enough. Very nicely timed snowball.
Yeah, that was really good there. Dubu, oh my god, and he also blocks them out there with the ice shards. He's trying to figure out if he wants to deny himself to Roche, but
here comes MP.
Actually go for this one. They might be in a little bit of trouble. Raven chasing, goes in the skeleton walk. That's going to be a kill. They're also haunting in for this one, and it looks like they might be able to do just so much damage as everybody is dying here. They've already killed off 2, and it looks like they might be able to take down Forev as well. They're keeping close together, so the Desolate damage isn't proccing onto them. Raven is not going to fall here. He is just going to be able to walk away from this one, and man, a pretty good fight right there for TNC. They end up being able to take down 3 and only lose the Slardar and the Venge.
Yeah, 3 for 2. It's maybe it could have been even better for TNC, I want to say, but Dubu does really well to delay things so that the Spectre and Invoker can get involved. Mid lane now, here's the ganking Slardar, and this is trouble for MP. Oh, hey, got the Ghost Walk. Do they have the reveal? This is Sentry. He places it really late. Okay, that's a poor execution from AU. Yeah, that's I think if he places a Sentry early, they will get the kill.
They did kill up in the top lane while that was happening. Faceless Void managed to head off Ancient Apparition, and just a collection of bashes, as well as the Vengeful Spirit rotating, and they found that kill. So the gank mid does not end up succeeding, but the gank top does. And TNC off to a hot start here, and after game number 1 ended up losing that one, it feels like they've come back strong in game number 2.
Yeah, and the support Slardar is getting more down than the support Task at this point, and that's like, it feels like it's a slightly greedier pick, but if you get as much work done or even more work done, then it's kind of like something you're getting away with, because certainly once it's level 6, it's really going to add a lot.
Ooh, and looking for a little bit more. Teehee is going to be able to find Febby. There's the Dream Coil drop down. They do have a Crush that's going to end up coming out. Febby just drops. They find another kill. Teehee on a roll, and I think this is going to be building into an early Veil as we actually see the Chronosphere bottom lane. They kill off 1. Clinks is able to finish off the Spectre there. They're looking for Dubu. Magic Missile comes out, looking for a bash. Can they find it? Not there as of yet, and they might have to call the retreat with that one. Man, all over the place right now, TNC.
Yeah, but unlike last game, TNC getting a kill advantage, but MVP are not like getting some kind of trade-off of pushing towers. In fact, MVP on the side this game that have real trouble with, if you look at the heroes they have in terms of pushing, especially with the Invoker going Coswex, there's really no pushing power at all on MVP this side. So TNC have the pushing advantage, but are also getting the kill advantage, and I think that's a pretty positive sign for them.
Yeah. Well, the one thing you could also say for MVP, though, is they kind of have that ace in the hole with the Spectre and being able to push it towards the late game. Granted, you still do want to get active early, but we haven't seen the rotation that comes in with a Spectre Haunt in conjunction with a sort of a Snowball and Sunstrike scenario. Obviously, you're not going to have Sunstrike because it doesn't have any points in Exor, but it's still something to keep in mind, that they have the ability to jump in on one of these heroes and potentially make something happen. And it looks like they're going to be looking for that opportunity right now with Haunt available, and Invoker is going to end up being able to jump in there, and there's the EMP Tornado, and actually going to haunt in on Sam, but don't connect with the dagger, and this is just going to be a walk away. They can't really afford to give away opportunities like that.
Yeah, the timing at this stage is quite difficult. I mean, he gets it slightly wrong, I think, with the EMP Tornado, but I think usually when you have a slightly higher airtime with the Tornado, then you can sort of guarantee the exact timing, whereas if you have a low airtime on the Tornado, you have to kind of... It's a risk, put it that way, because you have to put the EMP first, and I don't know. He doesn't get the EMP to connect. The Void gets the time walk away, and unfortunately, that is a missed opportunity, which would have been pretty important for them, and quite a big commitment as well.
Yeah, it was just a failure to execute right there. That's basically what it comes down to, and it happens every now and then to the best of us. But they are going to jump in now and catch on to Febby. This is going to be an easy kill for them as he ends up going down. Clinks finishing that one off. And man, Raven is just on a really hot start. The Soul Ring completed now, building into the medallion. I think it's actually finished and coming out to him on the courier at this point. So could end up being a very quick Roshan if they wanted to go for it. And man, Kyo rather, is not at all afraid of AU here.
Yeah, so there's a reasonably big timing coming out for MVP with the AA hitting level 6 and Batrider quite close to Blink. Here comes the first Ice Blast. They don't know he's level 6, so it could be caught unawares, but TNC just going to fight into it.
Oh my god, the damage. Dubu is almost dead. The Invoker goes down, but does manage to get off the EMP. It hits onto Raven, but they don't have any follow-up at all. The trade in the end is the Vengeful Spirit for the Invoker.
Yeah, I'm sure the plan to, like, show off the shiny new Ice Blast wasn't to kill support at the cost of the Invoker, so still a win for TNC.
You could say at this point, all right, there seems to be some issues. There was lag concerns at the start for MVP, but regardless of that, it does feel like TNC's movements around the map are just a little bit more polished. So it's not just that they're sort of a little bit of a failure at execution. It's also, to a large extent, I think, TNC making really smart decisions as to where to fight.
Yeah, the difference also comes out of the mid lane, right? Tihi's pack is 3-0, and MP's Invoker is 0-3. And part of that is that the pack got the solo kill on the Invoker when they're 1v1ing, but it's also that the Slardar could gank into the Invoker. Invokers are more susceptible to gank hero in the mid lane, whereas the Tusk couldn't really gank into the pack. I mean, he tried to early on, but it's a pack. So in terms of like if we look at the net worths, Tihi's pack is right at the top. Invoker's all the way down there in the middle, and that's kind of the controlling heroes via the draft. It's gone much better for TNC.
Absolutely. And I think that now they're going to end up trying to remedy this a little bit. The EMP is going to end up hitting, as does the AA Blast, so building back a little bit of an advantage going his way as Invoker finds the kill, but in the same breath, we're going to see TNC take down the bottom tier 1 tower here. Saving a little bit of mana there with the Searing Arrows, and it is going to end up falling down. So, pretty well played. I do think that MVP can probably maybe punish this in the top lane as well, but they're still a long ways off being able to build into any of these big items. I mean, Invoker, he's still, what, 1,200 gold away from a Midas?
Yeah, so farm progression not looking great for him, and I'm pretty sure TNC won't want to give up this top tier 1, and we did talk about a weakness in MVP's draft like TNC had last games. They don't naturally push very well, so can't put that pressure. Tihi is actually looking for initiation, yeah.
A little bit of a bad one. He didn't end up being able to get the silencer. The A Blast is going to come through. Actually ends up connecting, and a lot of damage going down. I think that they find one. Might be able to get another. Sam H actually jumps in. He doesn't have mana for Chrono because of the EMP. Oh, really nice haunt away there. He doesn't end up getting hit by the first blast, and Dubu is going to fall. QO maybe a bit far forward, but the Batrider is also going to be trying to bring them back into the fray. They bring him up on the high ground, and Forev just trying to run away for the moment. It looks like Raven might end up falling as MP is back in the mix, and AU getting ran down. Also already 2 dead, maybe going to be able to get a little bit more, misses the crush, and going to be able to fall as Cuckoo ends up being the last right-click killed by Spectre. Man, DD up on QO. He's really happy after that fight.
Yeah, and the vision advantage there was pretty big there as well. If we look at these, there's a Warderness entry here for the side of MVP. And TNC, when they came into that fight, they didn't have any vision. They didn't know that actually the whole team was there, and they get caught out. Pack goes in deep, and turns out there's too many heroes there. Then Void jumps in and gets EMP'd, can't use the Chronosphere. And the Klinks almost manages to do the trick alone, just with all the damage output. But Klinks is one of those heroes, it's a bit like Queen of Pain. When you blink forward, you get a lot done, or suddenly your blinks on cooldown, you're in the middle of them and you're fragile. And that's what happens with Klinks. You go in, you get your damage out, but if you're not killing enough heroes, your ulti runs out, and you don't really have a neat escape mechanism, and suddenly you're very fragile.
Yeah, that was, you imagine had that team fight gone a little bit different if Puck just gets the silence immediately and then is able to get out, but was not the case this time around, and they are going to roll in now onto Cuckoo with the A Blast following it up, Wolver's Punch, a quick and easy one, as she ends up, well, swap back, maybe making it a little bit more difficult. But I think that she's still going to go down. Maybe not. Cuckoo's just running away from him for the moment and ends up being able to heal up through the AA Blast. They drop down a Chronosphere onto 3. Can they follow it up with anything more, though? It doesn't look like it. The Vengeful Spirit actually the one that ends up being able to get the kill. And Sam H going to be pulled back. He is going to fall. So they end up trading essentially I mean, the Faceless Void hits a nice chrono, but there wasn't anything else to follow it.
Yeah, I think that MVP are really excelling at the vision game in this series, in this game as well. It's just, if you look at where the plays are happening, the plays keep happening in places where MVP's wards are up, and TNC have 3 wards up in a region of the map that nothing's happening there at all. So they're playing blind essentially because none of these interactions are happening anywhere where they can see things. And maybe things turn in their advantage if they start getting into fights there, if they go for the tier 2 bot, for example, or fights the rush pit.
Oh, they're all grouped up together. AU is going to be able to maybe hit a big crush. Actually doesn't connect on anybody. And now Raven in a little bit of trouble, getting ran down. Oh, they end up actually pushing him over the shards, but I think he ends up still going down. Yeah, Batrider found the kill, and Teehee just trying to escape for the moment. Cuckoo getting ran down now with the right clicks as well as the urn, and there's the cold snap. He should end up falling, and Dagger gonna go through, maybe, possibly, alive on 16 HP. He actually walks away from him for the moment, as trying to find the kill. MP is not going to be able to do it, but a reinitiation is imminent.
Things are going horribly wrong for TNC. They keep ending up in fights where they go in one at a time, and they really lose out as a result of that. Like I think their lineup is pretty well suited to winning fights at the moment if they're fighting together. But this whole one at a time thing is never going to work.
It's really been a bit of a falling off a cliff there. Dubu ends up just barely being able to survive through that one, and now they're going to be able to just get the counter initiation, man. That Wave of Terror almost found the kill. And actually going to be able to pull back AU. Venge doesn't actually have 6 or mana for swap at this point. And now Slardar completely out of position is going to fall. Febby alive on nothing. Is going to be able to throw out the AA Blast and connects it onto T. Now he's going to end up going down. They kill off the Tusk, but oh man. It just feels like from bad to worse.
Yeah, this Crosswax Invoker is doing everything now, by the way. Every fight he has the EMP that's just so damaging. I don't know if you saw the Venge TP. Okay, Venge probably gonna die now as well, but at the start of that fight, QQ TP'd into the tower and immediately got EMP'd. Like, as he landed, the EMP went off, he had no mana, and he used the wave, which almost got that last kill, and that was his mana gone. He couldn't do anything. So, it's... On the one hand, TNC had a few of these fights where they're going in one at a time, they're not coordinated. On the other hand, we have these fights where one of the heroes, importantly, just doesn't have any mana when the fight starts, and they're not getting the opportunity to do what they want to do, to approach the fights they want to, the way they want to approach them. Like, TNC are not getting the clean initiations that they're hoping for, and MVP are just starting to pull ahead.
It really does feel like it's falling out of their control, and I don't really see anything on the side of MVP that seems spectacularly amazing. It's just they're taking fights on their terms, and you look now at this Spectre who's going to have a relic up at 18 minutes after what was not a great start for them. She ended up dying in lane, and 5-1 and 7 since then. It's just been a spectacular game since a bit of an innocuous start, and now the Smoke Ink is going to come. Haunt is again available, as is the AA Blast, and man, if they get caught out by Sam H, they're going to be able to pull him back right at the start of this one. There's the AA Blast. He ends up going down with the Walrus Punch. A quick and easy one, and now going to be able to find AU as well. He drops, looking for Teehee, going to be able to throw out those ice shards, and is going to orb away for the moment, but no blink is going to be available as that urn is on him.
I really think this is a story of two mids where the first 10 minutes the pack did much more, and the next, well, okay, Klinks does get a kill, but now he's isolated himself, and I think they just go for the Klinks straight up, and this is what I talked about. Once Klinks is committed, he's pretty fragile and susceptible to being burst down.
They go back for the last kill there. Kuo ends up being able to find it. Meanwhile, Cuckoo goes down, and Tier 1 tower is finally going to fall for MVP, but the more important thing is that this is only 300 gold away from a Radiance on Spectre at just about 20 minutes after going back for the Vit Booster, Phase Boots, and Aquila. So incredibly farmed Spectre at this point in the game, and TNC just keep on trying to take these fights, but it's always on MVP's terms. They're never getting the initiation, and you said it all stems from this vision advantage. I mean, look at the vision advantage from the Dire right now. They've got all of the vision over their jungle, and there's just no response, really.
You know, the problem all starts with this fight that happens up here that TNC lose, because up until that point, TNC were ahead, and their vision was on the other side of the map, and they're expecting it's fine to have vision there because we're about to be aggressive. We're going to push the tier 2, we're going to secure the rush pits, and that's where they think the game's going to happen. So they commit 3 observer wards to that area of the map, and as it turns out, after they lose the fight in the top river, they're not as far ahead as they were before, and they can't dictate the pace of the game. The game doesn't happen where they want it to be happening, and they have that huge vision disadvantage, that vision deficit, which means that MVP are fighting on their terms all the time. So TNC now are going for a smoke play into the rush pits, and they do have a very fast rush kill.
Yeah.
So this will probably succeed, although the Ice Blast is coming in, and there's no Spectre Horn just yet, and Spectre doesn't even have mana, so maybe they can still finish it. TNC look a bit apprehensive.
Yeah, this is scary, and actually going to be able to catch right on the edge of that tornado onto AU. It's, man, I try to imagine this game, how it would have looked if TNC, instead of trying to take that fight up in the top lane, had gone to Roche 5-7 minutes ago, because they probably could have taken it. It would have needed to be either snuck or trying to maybe at least fight around that area where you said they had the vision with the observer wards, but getting maybe slightly baited into an engagement there and not being able to find it. It really has not gone the way they've wanted to.
Smoke into smoke, and if TNC can start on Spectre, it's huge, but Spectre Horns senses something, and...
Oh, yep, this is going to be the Chronosphere. Actually only connects on a Tee, but still, it's a huge one. They're not going to be able to bring him down, and Raven getting controlled. QO is already on a double kill, and MP unstoppable streak. Nobody from MVP goes down. The Chronosphere caught the puck.
And MVP actually initiates it on an illusion, but even though they initiated on an illusion, they still win the fights. They're just more... I mean, it really helps. You talk about vision advantage, people don't often talk about, but if a fight starts, your Spectre haunting, suddenly your team could see all the enemy team and you have a clear idea of what you want to do. So that, forget about wards, like your Spectre used haunts, and now you know. It was pretty close to TNC initiating on the Spectre, and if they had burst on that Spectre before it got the haunts off, totally different fight, but... You know, they were onto... It's funny, it's kind of like MVP saw an illusion, and I think that's why they reacted, used the horns, and BAP used the ulti on the illusion, but it's... They still win the fight just because they get the horns off, and then they know what they want to do.
Man, what a different game than we were expecting to see. Cuckoo trying to finally deward, but is going to end up just getting brought down again, and QO is getting everything that he wants this game. Radiance, Vitality Booster, Phase Boots Aquila, now 1,600 gold on top of it. GG gets called, they're done. Oh yeah, my god.
They're crumbling. I mean, this can't be good for their morale. TNC partying on a good space right now, not happy with themselves. They felt like the game was going really well, and they were right. It was going really well to a point, and suddenly things just really turned around. I mean, they were controlling the tempo of the game, they were ahead, and it just... I really think that fight was a major turning point, and it was a bit of... It was just a... You gotta give credit to MVP that they had good vision up to push, even though their lineup wasn't good at pushing. And then when TNC came and like sloppily tried to defend the push, MVP were ready, and TNC just weren't.
I do have to say, you know, you want to give it the respect that you got to MVP.Phoenix. They took advantage of the situation, but I don't think that I've ever seen a team beat themselves as hard as TNC just did. That really, to me, felt like it was just sort of little bit by bit, like trying to walk through quicksand. And unfortunately, you hate to go out like that, but this does mean that MVP.Phoenix are going to be the ones that are going to move on to the grand finals. A little bit shocking the way that it ended up going down, done at 23 minutes, and we'll see how they end up being able to face off. Again, as we switch on over to this is going to be the brackets, as MVP.Phoenix are going to win. Face off against Fnatic tomorrow. That's going to be at midnight Pacific Daylight Time, and it's a best-of-5 series. What are you looking forward to in that game?
I haven't got to watch that much of Fnatic since Mushi came back. Obviously, we saw them at Epicenter, and they were a little bit underwhelming. Fnatic had been fantastic up until Mushi came back, in fact, and they've been fantastic largely because of 343's captaincy and drafting, and he's still around. Obviously, we know what happened there, so I'm very curious to see, like, if the fact that they brought a different carry player in means that their drafts have changed and how Fnatic are looking. I expect, even if they're still getting used to the fact that they've reintegrated the Mushi again, I expect they still have an advantage of MVP. Fnatic usually are very strong inside their local scene, inside the SCA qualifiers. MVP a little bit stronger on LAN. I mean, both of them have done well in both recently, but I'd say it's more Fnatic territory than MVP territory.
All right, well, we're going to see what ends up happening. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. It was an absolute pleasure casting for you all. We're going to be back tomorrow again, same time, same place. It's going to be MVP.Phoenix facing off against Fnatic. Again, just a little bit shocking the way that went down, but congratulations to TNC at the end of the day, because they were able to do a pretty great job up until this point. They were in the upper bracket. They faced off against Fnatic. They did really great showings throughout their stuff, and you really hope that that doesn't stick with them too much longer, because they have a lot of big tournaments that are coming up regardless of the fact. Any final words before we finish this one off?
No, I got nothing. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to the finals tomorrow, and I'll see you then, I guess.
All right. Adios, everybody. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.